I started some disagreements recently. I made a video commenting on the incoming shotgun changes during Operation Heavy Metal. My claim was that the 1.5 times headshot multiplier has to go. But the other part of the overall balance patch, the tightening of the choke on shotguns overall, was quite interesting and worth exploring. I thought this stance was going to be popular. I thought it might even be more popular than the Hennessy Bronco Velociraptor, who, in teaming up with Ridge, is sponsoring this video. Ridge makes everyday carry items. They make stuff like wallets, key cases, and the like. The materials are high quality and last a lifetime. This key case in particular is made out of steel. Ridge products come in a variety of different finishes. As you can see here, this steel wallet matches up with the steel key case. Ridge products come with a lifetime warranty, and they'll let you test drive them for 99 days and ship them back for free if you don't like them. Now let's talk about the giveaway. Entering this giveaway is as simple as going to the website without spending $1. If you win the giveaway and you don't like the car, you can also get $75K in cash. You get bonus entries in these sweepstakes for every dollar that you spend. Custom Hennessy products can come with up to 1,000 entries. Using my link in the description will get you 10 bonus entries at checkout. The link therein being ridge.com/Gregor. Not to mention, you'll get a 10% discount. Now is a good time as ever to consider getting a Ridge wallet. Go to the link in the description, ridge.com/Gregor, and use my code Gregor at checkout for 10% off. Thanks again to Ridge for sponsoring this video. I said in the King's English, plain as day, that I think there is validity and fun to be found in the change. And like every other piece of feedback on the internet, I'll obsess on the wrong things and ignore the good parts because I'm addicted to validation. And that's a completely different topic we don't have to go into. The pushback was predictable, and by saying this, I have not completely agreed with every single aspect of this buff, this fun thing. I have singled myself out as not wanting to have fun. I am no fun. And I know this is a part of the gig that will never go away, but there was a component of some of this pushback that struck me as quite odd, and that was a consistent doubling down and necessity to outline that the game is supposed to have realistic and intuitive mechanics, which I have gone to bat for before. So you can understand my frustration. You know, terminology like, oh, if I fire 12 gauge double-aught buck, 13 meters, actually the Mossberg 500 is good from up to 30 to 40 meters. Pro League nerds won't understand, blah, blah, blah. I know these arguments are usually a massive case of projection, and this is something that I've wanted to hone in on with the Siege community for a long time, and it's going to ruffle some feathers, but hey, that's more engagement, so what the fuck? I can say this pretty confidently because I grew up around firearms, right? Why am I bringing this up? Well, you can tell by the way that I talk, I'm not exactly going out bow hunting in the Alaskan wilderness. Probably not. I'm a computer nerd. I've spent a good portion of my life online, but some of you have pointed out, especially in the way that I pronounce lawn, ron, and son, that I don't sound like I'm from a big uppity northern city in New England. My circumstances were that of an archetype that I will officially coined today, the digital rural kid. Basically, we kind of lived in the middle of nowhere and there wasn't shit to do, so I spent a lot of time on the computer. There are lots of kids like me, and I could tell because we all played the same video games and had the same kind of borderline obsession with matters of military history, politics, and whatnot. Eventually, the politics started to get a lot more weird, but that's neither here nor there. Plugging in the right HDMI cord in the DVD player at your cousin's birthday party made you look like a computer genius. Learning something from the internet was like you pondered a wizard's orb. Your power would go out sometimes due to bad weather, or the internet would go out, and your online friends who lived a little closer to civilization would remark on that with a bit of a grin. I still do. One of my Siege friends is from Oklahoma, and sometimes a tornado would just leave him unable to play video games for a bit. Like, that would actually happen. The older I get, the more I take stock of how certain behaviors are trained into people based off of their environment, which explains a lot of the political and cultural divides along rural and urban places. I grew up in a pretty rural environment, as much as my mom would have liked to raise me in an uppity Nova McMansion closer to DC, a little closer to society. My dad detested city life and by extension suburbia, so that never ended up happening. My dad wanted me to be functional and my mom wanted me to be smart, so I would go be a patron of the arts with nice clothes at the Kennedy Center one day and learn how to clean and maintain a shotgun the next day. I didn't think this was weird because I was an only kid and I kind of lived online. But our family friends in the city thought the gun thing was kind of dated and vulgar, and family friends in the country thought the theater thing was lavish and aristocratic almost. I noticed this dichotomy online too. I'll talk about Mikhail Baryshnikov in one video and Mikhail Kalashnikov in another video and confuse the shit out of people. What happens when you try to combine these two things? What happens when you combine art with the need to take care of your shit? Well, I think a lot of people would naturally say the movies and video games are a place where this was explored a lot. Americans love our military military because we love winning, okay? What better way to win than to have an effective and powerful military? It kind of gives you this blank check to tell everybody to fuck off, tell everybody skill issue. I like good writing and I like good storytelling. A lot of the games that I grew up playing were examples of that. A lot of them had to do with the military fiction, and fantastical concepts about what-if scenarios in which we had to go to battle. There's something compelling from a fictional point of view about going to battle, putting your life on the line for something that you believe in. Bungie ended their ownership of Halo with Halo Reach, depicting humanity's finest super soldiers in pitched battle with an alien invasion that would take each of them down one by one, but they would go down with dignity. They would go down with a bit thumb. I wonder if you'd be able to make this kind of game in 2023. I wonder if corporate executives would say it's too dark, it's too depressing, we can't push this out there. I wonder if those same corporate executives understand what kind of game they're selling. A game about war. In 2010, we'd been embroiled in conflicts for who knows how long. We had forgotten how long. In 2010, Iraq had a series of parliamentary elections. But there was still fighting going on then, and there had been fighting going on for 7 years. Americans have been given time to take stock of what just happened, and a lot of them were not happy. Following the events of the September 11th terrorist attacks, we said skill issue a lot. And I don't just mean America, just about every country on the planet invoked article skill issue, but we're starting to see a disconnect. We're starting to see that an overly simplified and romanticized conception of the military and military affairs creates a fantasy world that doesn't exist, that does not give you results, the results that are often fantasized by these same people. It's why the Ukraine-Russia thing became such a massive litmus test. Russia bros had concocted this horseshit narrative about thousands of proud Russian soldiers, and they'll steamroll Ukraine by numbers advantage, and everyone just ignored geography and logistics because those are for nerds, which is just nonsense. People have a childlike way of looking at this stuff, and you just can't get through to them because they think war is what you see in a video game. And people have fallen for DCS world clips on this stuff constantly. People with huge followings. It's a massive self-report because it immediately makes it clear to everyone that they don't know shit about the military. They only care about posturing. Posturing about toughness and how we're going to lose a war because of wokeism doesn't mean shit when Russia's philosophy got exposed. Looking based does not mean anything when your tank is locked on by a javelin rocket fired by a dude built like Timothée Chalamet from 1 out of 100 windows that you can't narrow down. And that's one of the realities about warfare that nobody will ever admit if they have this unhealthy obsession with the fantasized version of it. They will never admit that looking tough and looking cool is not the goal. The goal is to complete the objective. Nobody cares about your honor system. The parameters these weirdos set for what is cool and isn't cool aren't realistic. It only manifests itself in surface level evaluations. The terminally online right isn't just responsible for this. It happens on the other side of the political aisle too. Actually, the Spartans lost more to the Athenians? That's crazy. It's almost like every Greek city-state was a loser to the Romans. Academics of anything don't hyperfixate on the outcome. They contextualize how the outcome took place. Academics of history also take into consideration technology. Technology is not irrelevant to these conversations. Technology and the development of it has become the ultimate skill issue argument when it comes down to waging war. And this was made pretty evident during World War II when Hitler was able to convince an entire generation of young German men that were cool enough to go to toe with these guys. And then they got their ass kicked by Ford and General Motors. Part of the frustration for me anyway comes from how it seems so ridiculous that one could assume cool factor is that important when it comes to these sorts of matters. The consistent and repetitive doubling down creates this vicious cycle in the minds of these young men. Don't break. Don't falter. Admitting fault or weakness in something is weakness inherently, which is not true. It's a concept of good engineering to isolate weaknesses and find ways to work around the weakness. Jocks in the NFL rely on the expertise of nerds on their medical staff. It's a common chud pivot point to say, actually, the jock was the good guy and the nerd was the villain, and now the nerds are in charge and the West has fallen. Neither the jock or a nerd is a fucking villain inherently, because that's not how humans work. A jock can be an asshole, a nerd can be an asshole. Anyone can be an asshole, anyone cannot be an asshole. In a game like Rainbow Six Siege, the jock and the nerd work together just like in real life. Operators who do this dangerous work rely on the information and assessments made by nerds at a desk who, granted, are not putting themselves at the same kind of direct risk, but the guy with the scar and the chick with the clipboard rely on each other to do the op. So yeah, why am I a nerd who knows a thing or two about guns? I don't know. Maybe because people who design guns are nerds too. And guess what? I'm not a tier 1 op either, and I can tell you pretty confidently that Rainbow Six Siege isn't fucking realistic. In fact, I don't want it to be. Now, there are mechanics that you can design from an intuitive point of view to make things easier to understand, like one in the chamber, reload too early, and you have one bullet, but still got to put the mag back in and set it. To anybody with a rudimentary knowledge of firearms, this doesn't need an explanation. Likewise, just because this mechanic exists doesn't mean that shotguns should be exactly how they operate in real life. We don't implement gun jamming in Rainbow Six Siege, even though that is a thing that happens in real life. Shotguns are overpowered in real life. We do a ton of things in game design at an efficiency level that is not reflective of how these things are done in real life because it's a freaking video game. You're selling the idea of it. You're not selling the actual thing. We had a really good sweet spot here around like Battlefield 4, right? We had China, US, Russia, Cold War gone hot. Everybody's going toe to toe, but we still made everybody look cool. Are you implying that China and land invade? Shut up. It's a video game.
Don't you think it's kind of weird that you have to play as the Germans in the World War II?
Shut up! It's a video game.
Yeah, I agree. That's why politics should...
No! That's not the takeaway either! You know how I learned how badass the Soviet pilots were during World War II? A game in my school library sale called IL-2 Sturmovik 1946. Nobody had any idea what these guys did because all of that was hidden behind the Iron Curtain. Did I play these games and get indoctrinated into communism? No! Because I'm not a fucking idiot! Yes, there are weird chuds that take it too seriously. I'm sorry, I can't do anything about that. I can go into their Gmod server and I control them. That's about the best that I can do. Guess what? Some people like realistic FPS games and don't demand that from Rainbow Six. Because one person's LARP can just be someone's idea of genuine fun. People who want those realistic kinds of games, they go play them, right? They don't go to Siege and then talk about how the 9mm ballistics isn't properly modeled when it impacts with Kevlar at this range and fucking blah, blah, blah. Like, you're not fooling anyone. Especially the people who you're trying to emulate who do this kind of work. I like to use the first-person action movie analogy a lot of the times to describe a smarter implementation of this philosophy. Growing up in the Northern Virginia area, I didn't give a crap if the scale of the Russian invasion in Modern Warfare 2 was unrealistic or the politics didn't 100% line up. Isn't there a radar dish that can detect them from... Like, I didn't care. Hans Zimmer on the soundtrack, great voice acting. It was a movie. It was basically a movie. The detailed immersive environment of a real land invasion of my home, the part of the world I spent more time in than anywhere else, was stunning to me. Day trips to DC were a staple of my childhood. The White House is on fire. The Washington Monument is set against a black and orange blaze. What if? It posed a provocative question. I had a childhood friend who signed up for the Marines as soon as he got out of high school. If it ever got this bad, if a foreign nation decided to do this, any one of these guys could be him. It felt real. It just made me think. Like, yes, the logical part of my brain was like, actually, the early warning of the geography, it would not take a... No shit, it wasn't realistic. A lot of movies aren't realistic. But they feel realistic. It made you feel a certain kind of way, and that was the point. The embassy siege in London, when these ninja-like figures were shown to the world, was the inevitable meeting of modern broadcasting with this dark undercurrent. Not talking about this stuff was a deliberate effort to make sure people didn't look into it or try to emulate it. There are guys in these communities that don't like that there are video games made out of this stuff. But the cat's out of the bag. For just a moment, a very brief moment, I felt like average people were able to admire and respect these people when Jocko Willink showed up on Casey Neistat's YouTube channel and talked about an interesting philosophy when it came to maintaining a sleep schedule. Something really simple, but it provoked a really cool conversation. A lot of people still don't fuck with Casey after this video. I was one of those people. I was one of those pissy, edgy libertarian kids. I also unsubscribed back then. I'm 27 now. I'm not a libertarian anymore. I still think Casey messed up here. Not because he was voting for Hillary Clinton. Okay, maybe a little bit. But I had friends who were Hillary voters, and I didn't cut them off because they didn't approach it the same way Casey did. They went, "You're voting for a party?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they were just kind of like, fucking whatever. I don't think people who obsess over the realism of tactical bro video gameism are big, dumb, stupid idiots. Casey Neistat evidently thought Jocko was cool. I think Jocko's cool. Everybody thinks Jocko is cool. Jocko is a cool dude. The way to be more like Jocko isn't to LARP him in a video game. It's to eat right. It's to wake up on time. It's to take care of your body, your mind. That's how you be more like Jocko. If you want to be more like Jocko, You do that. Not the video game shit. There's a place for cool factor. It's Hollywood. It's the single player campaign. I'm going to say something kind of controversial. Okay, I know this is going to piss some of you off. All right, here I go. If you've never shot a firearm, you can't have a favorite assault rifle. I'm sorry. Those are the rules. I know I'll never do this kind of shit. I knew that a long time ago. And the people who do this shit don't expect anybody else to. That's why they do it. You got to believe in something to do this job at all. Whether that's your country, your God, your culture, your family, your philosophy, because you got to be willing to put your life on the line for it. A healthy relationship with this subject material makes for better art and a smarter people. Siege is not real life. But that doesn't mean there isn't somebody like Ash really out there working with the fire team on some top secret shit in Lebanon or something. I just think she'd probably prefer it if we didn't try to unhealthily fixate on the part of her work that involves firing a gun. She'd probably want to be remembered for something else. Or maybe nothing at all.